So we're going to go ahead and begin. This is the regular meeting of the Community Redevelopment and Housing Commission. Today is April 24th, 2019, and our Vice Chair Santana will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance.
All rise. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Santana. Madam Recording Secretary, please take roll call.
Commissioner Aguinaga?
Here.
Commissioner Garcia?
Here.
Commissioner Perez?
Present.
Chair Ramos?
Present.
Vice Chair Santana?
Present.
Commissioner Ursua? Commissioner Tardif? Commissioner Limon? Commissioner Frazier?
Present.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Present.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Recording Secretary. Seeing a quorum, the meeting is officially called to order. I would now like to begin the agenda by taking items out of order per staff's request. I would like to begin with the business calendar, specifically item number 4, verbal update from the Homeless Services Manager. Do we need a motion to move items out of order, Seth?
No, that's at
Okay.
the discretion of the chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Hafsa Keika, Homeless Service Manager with the city. So first of all, let me begin by saying that, we have been working hard to get on a schedule. You've heard from Bianca and myself to reach out to you guys to go to the link. It's been a little difficult trying to coordinate that. So I just want you to know that we're still trying to do that 3 at a time, because we want to make sure that the residents at the link, we're honoring their residency, so we don't want a big group. So just keep posted to Bianca's emails in coordinating that, and also the ride along with Colt, the quality of life team. So first of all, I just wanted to let you know this is the cover of the April magazine for Western Cities. It features the link. So we were featured as a best practice model, and since then I've had many cities call me. I've had San Jose, Oakland, Hawaii's called me, just all throughout the West Coast on how to create an emergency shelter within 28 days. What's relevant to that, this group, is because we're always trying to encourage housing, affordable housing, permanent supportive housing, but we do understand that oftentimes shelter is an immediate, safe, and stable housing. And so obviously we're happy to ensure that there is affordable housing that can be linked to people who are exiting emergency housing, which is the link. And, working so well with Judson and his team to get those mainstream vouchers. And we've been able to lease to 2 people with the mainstream vouchers since we got after that RFP last year. We've started the program since November. This was with the Illumination Foundation. I go to the link often. I see their case managers working with Mercy House's case manager, and 2 people have successfully been linked, or I think it's 2 households, to use those mainstream vouchers and are now housed and off from the link. And I think we have about 40 some pending, if I'm correct.
I think it's 18.
18 is pending. 18. A little ambitious on my end, but
vouchers, yeah. Voucher searching?
Yeah, 18 are searching, so that is going really well. That's another update. The other update I wanted to provide to you guys, I'm not sure if I did, on Operation Dignity and Operation Safe Passage that happened towards the end of, or the beginning of this year and the end of last year, to get people and folks into the link. Another big hot thing that's happening right now in homeless services are the railroads, and the city is working very hard with the quality of life team on getting people off the railroads. There's a railroad implementation plan. Also, Santiago Creek and certain hotspots are being connected by the Colt. One very exciting news is that today the point-in-time count numbers actually came out, and I'm looking at my phone for my notes, but for some reason my phone's not working right now.
I've got it.
Great. The Orange County did the January 22nd to the 24th point-in-time count, where what happens is that folks go out into the street. I believe a couple of the commissioners here took part in it, Commissioner Santana, and the individuals experiencing homelessness are surveyed all throughout the county. Thank you, Judson. So this is the official report. You're actually going to get an email from me as a follow-up, so you have this information. This is exciting because the last official point-in-time count happened in 2017. Orange County had a little over 4,000. I think it was close to 5,000 folks. And this point in time now indicates that there's about 6,860 folks throughout the county that are experiencing homelessness. So homelessness has increased in the last 2 years. But I'll say that with a caveat, the way the demographics was accumulated last time in 2017 was an aggregate. So this is more of an official count. This time there was actual counting on the streets. Last time it was an aggregate based on city population. So from a county perspective, this is definitely more robust and good data. How does it impact the city of Santa Ana? Well, the city of Santa Ana also has new numbers. We are reported to have 830 unsheltered and 939 sheltered, with a total of 1,769. So when we actually got the county's point-in-time count number back in 2017, it was close to 1,000, both sheltered and unsheltered. Then in 2018, the city did a point-in-time count, which I think a few of you guys also came out and helped out. That was citywide led, and that was around 1,600. So it's really interesting to see how we're so close. Actually, we're 98 people away from our city-led versus a county official. Two important things to know about this data is that, number one, our sheltered population has increased, and of course that's obviously with the link coming on board and more shelters throughout the county and beds. So we have more sheltered, which in a way is good. That means less people on the street, and our unsheltered has gone down. So even though it's a bigger number, when you look at the trend, there is significant impact that the city has done. So, and you'll get an email from me that kind of qualifies more information. Of this data also, in terms of housing, because that impacts the oversight that you provide, there was 311 veterans, 271 transitional age youth, and 677 seniors. So definitely what we hear out there is that there's the need for more senior housing. That's the highest population of individuals experiencing homelessness that are falling into homelessness, with high cost of rent and also lack of ability to continue working. So that is the county summary. We are going to be creating an infographic that's Santa Ana specific, and it'll be on our Addressing Homelessness website. Also, I was happy to see Commissioner Isuri at the Affordable Housing Conference by Housing California last week, where I was asked to present on 2 workshops. This is the biggest affordable housing conference. It's in Sacramento, about 2,000 people registered, and the city of Santa Ana was asked to present on the Homeless Emergency Aid Program that we got, the state funding to address emergency shelter beds or homelessness in general, and then also the link. So it was nice to see you there, and I had many great reviews, different cities reaching out to me. So basically, the macro level information is the boots on the ground. The work we're doing is really now beginning to see as a best practice model, and we're really seeing the fruits of the work of working in conjunction with housing and connecting people into off the streets, into shelter, and into housing. So, any questions?
I have a few, but I'll wait to hear from my fellow commissioners first. I will begin with Commissioner Aguinaga.
Thank you. Just one. How do you get the numbers from the homeless? I know the shelter, the sign up, right?
Yeah, so what?
The one who not shelter?
Yeah, so how the county basically designed the homeless count. So the federal, one of the federal cabinets is Housing Urban Development, as you all know, and they mandate about 400 continuum of care jurisdictions to conduct a point-in-time count, and it happens in January all throughout the nation. And this is a mandate because HUD provides the continuum of care funding to those programs, to that jurisdiction. And so it's tied to funding and program. Its practice informs the work. And so what the county did is they contracted at the end of last year an organization called CityNet that recruited several different volunteers that talked to all the cities, that created different times, that got the supplies, and really did this huge grassroots, we're going to meet at 4 a.m. in the morning and we're going to start going out and count. And both in the North Spa, which is like the Fullerton, Anaheim, Placentia, it was happening there at the same time, Central Spa, Santa Ana, Westminster, Huntington Beach, and then of course the South as well. And thank you for asking that question, because one of the biggest findings that we found was that the South Spa, which, there's a lot of litigious information about the South not creating enough homeless shelters, they actually had quite a few, 763 individuals experiencing homelessness. So this is really going to be interesting with the federal judge. As you know, homelessness and the federal Judge Carter is really hand in hand, and I'm sure he's going to be using this information. This information is also very timely as the state and Governor Newsom begins to look at HEAP version number 2, the Homeless Emergency Aid Program Block Grant. So the trailer bill now actually states that if jurisdictions have their 2019 data, that they could implement it, and I just got that information today. So hopefully, funding in the future is going to be impacting our state funding as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier.
Thank you very much for the update. Really appreciate that. I was kind of curious. There have been a number of smaller tent cities popping up around the city, especially Park Santiago, the 17th and Penn area, and it's a growing concern with people in the city. How are we as a city poised to address the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that our acting city manager mentioned in yesterday's public safety code enforcement and neighborhood community meeting, I also presented in that meeting, was one of the council members asked that question, how are we poised to pretty much inform other encampments throughout the city? And so to that answer, I'll say this. I've been tasked to create a budget for the quality of life team. We never really had a budget for the quality of life team. It was really, as my acting city manager does say, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? You kind of took a little bit from public works, you took a little bit from code enforcement, you leveraged your source, and we realized that it was such a success that, other jurisdictions were beginning to emulate us. And so this past couple of months, I've just been working with our fiscal to see about how much the quality of life team would be, and we're looking at anywhere between $3 million. And so to your question is, how are we poised? We're beginning with budget. Number one, we're seeing how we could ask for that. Number two, if we're approved by it, then we're going to begin to build capacity. And then number three, we're going to actually go ahead and execute those operations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia?
I actually just have a question more for my colleagues. How many of you have toured the link? Are you signed up for it? Yes. Can I still join? 'Cause I didn't reply to the email, but I'm totally thought I missed the deadline or something.
No, Commissioner Garcia, as I mentioned earlier, it would be so easy for me to just say, hey, Bianca, let's all get everyone together and go. But because this is an emergency shelter, because this is a place of residency for the individuals, I want to honor them not feeling intimidated. I want to honor, smaller crowds. So we're going to go in threes. So I'm really asking Bianca's help to reach out and figure out schedule of three of the commissioners at a time. So we're going to do it like that. And then Commissioner Frazier, just to also let you know, we're not necessarily waiting on the budget to, inform removal of encampments and whatnot. It happens on a daily basis. I want to make that clear. And it happens through the My Santa Ana app. You just go on the app, you can inform that there's an encampment, and our team will go out and
to that point, I appreciate you bringing up the My Santa Ana app, because I don't think it gets enough airplay. But to that point, there's not... I was in it earlier this afternoon. I was wanting to turn in some broken glass over in front of the old city hall. There's just not the options. There's just not the clarity and of options to submit something like that unless you know, well, okay, I know that this was probably dealt with this part of the city. But somebody coming in as far as a general citizen, I don't think they're going to be able to navigate that quite as easily.
Well, I'll certainly take that to the design team of My Santa Ana app. Just one thing for clarity is that, we're very regardful of individuals experiencing homelessness. So in terms of that, the option is encampments, right? Because it is not illegal to be homeless, right? And you can't just spot homeless folks left and right. So it's really for abandonment of property. But that's for homelessness. But to your feedback, I'll take it back to the My Santa Ana app, folks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Commissioner Vasquez.
My fellow commissioners have pretty well answered the questions that I had as far as how the data was collected and the other questions. I'm satisfied with the answers.
Thank you. Commissioner Tardif?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Perez?
Do you have dates that maybe we can just sign up now? Because I really want to get out there as soon as possible. So I think, we're all here. We can look at our calendars because I think there's some urgency on our end to go out.
How does this Friday look? Speaking of urgency. How about Friday at 4 o'clock?
I cannot, but I have a quick question. Is the 3-person limit also to prevent this commission from violating the Brown Act? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So the 3-person limit is a hard limit.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Aguinaga.
So it's going to be only this Friday, or I'm going to be out of the country for a week?
Can I, if I may ask, can the commissioners raise their hand if they could do Friday at 4?
I can do Friday at 4.
Okay, so we have 2, we have 3. So we could have one group this Friday, and then Commissioner Cecilia, and then Commissioner Monica, and Commissioner Asura, and commissioners here, we could figure out other 2 days.
Yeah, sounds good.
So we got a date today, Friday at 4 o'clock. I hope my calendar's not busy because it's not working. So, but I think it's not.
Thank you. Commissioner Perez, did you have additional comments?
No, thank you very much for everything.
Thank you. Vice Chair Santana.
Yes. So during the last council meeting, they said, from what I was trying to gather was, if we find funding for the permanent shelter, then the link and the Orange County Transit Authority bus terminal and all the different shelters will go away. Is that true?
No, and thank you so much for reminding me to give you a little update about the Yale site. So I'm sure as you've watched council meetings, last week's council meetings, the county CEO, Frank Kame, did give an update, a letter from Supervisor Doe in regards to the update for the Yale site. So a few of you who may not know, we are dedicating our HEAP dollars to the permanent site, which is going to be the transition of this courtyard emergency shelter, which has been recognized as not a good practice. It was supposed to be an interim solution back when it commenced in 2016. And so in the effort to mitigate the impact of homelessness, in an effort to encourage the dignity of individuals experiencing homelessness, we have dedicated our HEAP dollars with the county to transition to a more conducive environment, as well as with the hope of creating supportive services that mimic essentially the link. That being said, the county did say this past Tuesday that they are halting on the construction, and what staff is waiting on is simply the direction of council as to how we should move forward.
Thank you. And 2 more questions. Mm-hmm. So what would be the difference if I stood outside the Armory shelter in Warner and jumped on the bus? Just out of curiosity, because I know that you're doing a 4 o'clock tour, but I've heard many stories from individuals who've been turned away or turned down, and the process is pretty long. Can we have more late evening, possibly tour? But I want to see the whole process from once they get on the bus until they enter the shelter facility, and then just to get a better understanding.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So basically you kind of want to be able to visually see folks that are coming from the community, that are coming back from their bus and entering. So let's put it on the record that that's tentative, because I am going to go back and talk to Mercy House to confirm the time for the bus. And then Commissioner Santana, you had actually asked a question earlier that I didn't give a concrete. In terms of beds for the Yale site, I just want to make it very clear. It's the transition of the courtyard. So all the folks who are in the courtyard are going to get transitioned. It's not an additional amount. We do have a dedicated amount of 125 beds for Santa Ana, because currently the courtyard does not necessarily have dedicated beds, but it's in the city of Santa Ana. So this is really our strategy that council approved to ensure that individuals who are experiencing homelessness have a place in Santa Ana, as we keep in mind that the link will dissolve in less than 2 years.
Last question is, have you been following on a Senate bill, SB 450, which is the motel conversion?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research back for a couple of months ago on the motel conversion, but I'm hoping that we'll continue to work on it. I know Judson and I kind of talked about it a little bit, but we're going to be, I think, having meetings with planning, because it really has them involved.
Sorry, Commissioner, you're referring to a recently introduced bill at the state level.
Correct.
I'll note that down. There's quite a lot of housing bills this year, and so.
The mayor was in town. He was in San Bernardino, and the mayor of Long Beach is also talking about motel conversion. So I just don't want to miss a train.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
We do have a lot of dilapidated motels, and so I know it's somewhat of a solution, but if we can either reach out to our representatives and get a better brief understanding, or maybe address the council for letter support or something.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. No, we'll follow up on that bill with our city manager's office and the staff who works with our legislative, our lobbyists at the state level, and it's particularly important too for our partner cities outside of Santa Ana, because if you look at what we did with the Orchard and what we're doing with Aqua Housing in terms of demoing that motel and creating a new construction project, and then the Budget In project, rehabbing that one and converting it into permanent supportive housing. So our city is really, I'd like to say we're on the front lines of converting motels in Orange County, and we have a couple, after 2 or 3 years, we'll have a couple models to show our partner cities who are interested in doing that further.
It was Senate Bill, what, 450?
Senate Bill 450.
450. Thank you so much for that. And like Judson said, there's frequent tours at the Orchard as a model for the rest of the county, and our mayor has gone to several of the big 11, now big 13 cities, meeting with Governor Newsom. So definitely great opportunity for our lobbyists to connect.
Thank you, Tasa. Nothing further.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And I have a few questions.
Sure.
So one of the things that you mentioned was that there are currently 18 Santa Ana residents that are seeking housing through vouchers that they've received, if I understood that correctly. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, what type of assistance are those individuals receiving to ensure that they find housing before those vouchers expire? Yeah,
absolutely. So the expectation with the mainstream voucher program, when we submitted when the NOFA was released last June, I think, was really working with a collaborative applicant that was able to show their housing navigation services. So the key word here is housing navigation. And so Illumination Foundation has a dedicated staff that goes into Mercy House and really creates rapport through motivational interviewing and best practices, and really walks hand in hand trying to help the individual find vacant units throughout the community. The Illumination Foundation is well known to be able to work in the community and find housing for individuals experiencing homelessness, and kind of working with different landlords and really helping with documentation, making sure that all the necessary paperwork is in place. So housing navigation and documentation collection, and always being available to speak to the clients when they need.
And I'll expand on that. So our housing authority is funded. The admin revenue that we receive for our housing authority for our Section 8 vouchers and the administration of our Section 8 vouchers is based on a per unit, each unit month leased. And why I start with that context is because with the amount of funding we receive from HUD to administer our Section 8 vouchers, we're only able to administer approximately 2,625 vouchers currently as of today, and we're projecting that due to our limited funding from HUD, that number is going to decrease over the next couple months. And we're not receiving enough administrative revenue from HUD to cover our adequate staffing costs. And that's not to say that we haven't reduced our costs over the last 4 years. We've actually not hired for three positions now so far that are no longer. We have two full-time positions and 2 part-time positions that we didn't rehire for because we don't have adequate funding for our staffing to administer our Section 8 vouchers. So with all that context said, what's unique about these mainstream vouchers is that Illumination Foundation is a service provider, in partnership with our housing authority. When they agreed to apply with us for these mainstream vouchers, and they agreed to provide housing navigation services for the voucher holders when they were searching with their vouchers. And now, Illumination Foundation, as a nonprofit, also struggled to find funding to staff the resources that they needed to provide the housing navigation services. So they only committed to provide wraparound supportive services and housing navigation services for 38 of the 50 vouchers that we applied for. And they actually used funding from our Continuum of Care, that our Continuum of Care funds them with, and swapped out a portion of those funds so that they could provide the wraparound supportive services for these vouchers, because again, they're limited by the funding that they receive and the donations that they receive. So they're able and committed to provide wraparound supportive services and housing navigation services for the 38 of the voucher holders. The remaining 12, once we learned that and realized that, the remaining 12, we reached out to the Orange County Healthcare Agency as another public department who already works with special purpose vouchers from the Orange County Housing Authority and have adequate staffing and adequate funding to provide wraparound supportive services and housing navigation services. They were very excited to talk to us and agreed to assist up to 12 mainstream voucher holders and provide those housing navigation services. So we were creative and not just giving up and saying, okay, well, 38 families will be assisted, but we won't have 12 remaining. We reached out to another partner and they were able to fill that gap and provide those housing navigation services for the remaining 12 so that we can get up to the full 50. In addition to that, as a representative of the city of Santa Ana, as well as the representative of our housing authority, I participate on the United to End Homelessness campaign, and they recently launched the Welcome Home OC Network, which is trying to attract private market landlords to make their units available to these type of voucher holders, these families who are searching for a unit with this tenant-based assistance that we're providing, combined with the wraparound supportive services that Illumination Foundation is providing, as well as the healthcare agency. And we've been very proactively supporting their effort. We were marketed their launch heavily to our landlord network. It worked to encourage our partner housing authority, the Anaheim Housing Authority and Orange County Housing Authority, to market those efforts to their landlord network. And they had a follow-up meeting in April. We marketed that effort as well, which I think it was in our landlord newsletter, which you would have seen. But we are proactively supporting that regional effort to find and attract private market landlords to make their units available to these voucher holders, so that the housing navigator staff, when they're knocking on door to door, calling, and they just no units available, that we're trying to create those opportunities where we will have landlords saying, yes, we want to rent to you, we want to rent to your voucher holder. And we're trying to incentivize them through a regional landlord incentive program that can find those units and get those units for those mainstream voucher holders who are searching.
Thank you for all of that additional information and context. And I really appreciate staff's creativity to ensure that all 50 individuals would receive that assistance to find housing. And I was trying to find the bill number right now, but there's actually a bill right now that would make it illegal for landlords to discriminate against that source of income, so Section 8. So a group of people from Santana was actually up in Sacramento last week lobbying for that. I need to pull up the bill number. I couldn't find it right now.
It's
but
SB. Sorry, I don't have the bill number. I just got an update from our city manager's office on that.
So has the city taken a position on that?
The city has not taken a position on this. However, per their last legislative meeting, they will be providing information to council that is being brought forward by the committee, and they were going to keep us apprised of the outcome of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then a follow-up question on that is, so of these 18, so there's 2 people that were housed with these mainstream vouchers, 18 that are searching. So of those 50, only 20 have been distributed as of now?
That's my understanding.
It's a very lengthy process. So the housing navigators and staff that are working with the voucher holders, they have really 2, I'd say 3 uphill battles in terms of getting the family housed. So the first uphill battle is identifying the family as a qualified and eligible family, but then getting them document ready.
Yeah.
And the amount of time and commitment and dedication and sweat to with HOFSA seeing them working with these families late hours to try and get them document ready. It's hard to describe that, but that's one uphill battle. The second is then getting them through our eligibility process, and we dedicate one staff to those vouchers, Maria Hodson, to make it as easy as possible for those families to navigate with our staff and work with our staff to get through our eligibility process, provide us with all the documents. They were getting document ready, so to provide us with all the documents that they needed to become eligible. But then once they get that voucher, then the third uphill battle is finding and locating a unit. So it's we've been in partnership with the Illumination Foundation since November 1st, asking them for referrals. We have monthly conference calls with their staff as well as the healthcare agency, and we do trust that they're working at their max capacity to get the families document ready and get them referred over to us so that we can determine their eligibility and issue them.
That was well said, Judson, and I would have remiss if I wouldn't say that, I'm in all of the emails that, require the MVP, and Judson's team is on it. I mean, they're just going back and forth, working really hard, communicating with the families, and I do monitoring visits at the link, and sometimes I'll show up at 9 p.m. and I'll see Illumination Foundation's case manager there at 9 p.m. sitting and saying, and I literally hearing him say, "Where is your ID? You were supposed to go get your ID. Can I help you get your ID?" And I just want to also say, number 2, that this issue of leasing up is something that's not foreign to Santa Ana. It happens all throughout the nation, about how to get people into vouchers quickly and get them actual vacant units. I mean, LA has at one point years ago, LA was lobbying a group in Skid Row to say, "We don't want documents anyone. No one gets documents. You just go into a home," and we know it doesn't work like that. So I think that what I've seen in terms of this success is pretty good, and we'll definitely work harder collectively to ensure that there is a quicker timeline.
That's great. So I was just asking those questions because I was wondering what that process looked like, but also if there had already been failed attempts. So, it seems like there haven't. Do you know if there's anyone that was unable to find housing and lost the voucher so far, or was going through that process and midway was no longer eligible?
We could go back and check.
Well, the first batch of vouchers were issued at the beginning of March, so the 60 days are coming up.
Yeah. So that deadline would be next month,
right,
to find housing.
They know they need to request extensions.
Okay.
And so we're reaching out to their case manager to make sure that they submit that request.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great, and that was going to be my next question. When is that deadline?
Yeah.
And it would be great if we can receive an update after that deadline, just on the status of those 18 that we're searching, where they're at, if they were able to find housing, and if not, how many of them requested extensions, and if they dropped out of the process.
Sure.
Understanding.
I think, do you provide that information in your housing report, or?
No.
Not that
Okay,
extensive.
so we'll collectively work on that one.
We could provide a one-time update on that.
Yeah, or I know I've asked for that for all of the vouchers in the past, but maybe it's possible for these since it's a much smaller batch.
We track on a monthly basis after that conference call. We track some data that on an ongoing basis we can share with you.
Great, thank you. And and then my last question is just on the point in time count. So I know when that point in time count was done in Santana specifically, there was some data that was collected. I'm wondering if that data is readily available somewhere. So I know there was data on, let's see, how many of those individuals that were currently homeless in Santana identified as Santana residents before they became homeless. I know there were a series of questions that were asked, and there was data that was compiled.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I will send you the summary because I sent a summary to our city manager's office today to this. But what you will see is the county has released in this report that you'll get by city as well. And I think we were just kind of talking a little bit about that on how many people were existing from shelters already from Santa Ana. The data that we collected as a city-led in 2018, those questions, some of them are different than the county-wide because we were trying to make a case for the litigation, but I'll try to get that to you.
Yeah, you can just send me even just the raw data or whatever it looked like of just what those numbers, what those questions were and what the results were.
So which one is this for?
The 2018.
For the city-led one?
The city-led one, yeah.
And you're asking for what exact data?
Just the data, whatever data was collected from that first count.
Okay.
I don't know if that's available somewhere.
I will confer with the city manager's office on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are all my questions. Are there any commissioners that have additional questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Frazier.
I was just curious, what is the definition of wraparound supportive services? Because I've gotten about 4 different definitions of this.
What 4 different definitions have you gotten?
Well, it's come from providers. It's been at different levels. So I'm just trying to get what our working definition of that is.
Sure.
What's included in that?
If I may jump in, the definition and the type of wraparound supportive services can be generally defined as what it's supposed to be, but each provider provides those wraparound supportive services in different ways.
Within a level of specificity.
And something that the United to End Homelessness Initiative is trying to work on is standardizing the provision of supportive services, wraparound supportive services between the nonprofit service providers.
Okay.
It's they've now identified the issue that it's provided differently. They're trying to standardize it in terms of a standard, quality of care, you can say. And they're hoping to roll that out in the next 2 to 3 months, countywide. But it's different. It really is different.
Let me give you a quick
intensive.
Let me just give you a quick example. Wraparound supportive services from my background in social work is integrated, communicative, supportive services. Now, how that is broken down, like Judson said, each provider. So, for example, you have Downtown Women's Center in Skid Row. I mean, that's in the heart of Skid Row. You see everything. There's a clinic there. There's OBGYN. Their wraparound services is mental health diagnosis. It's medical health diagnosis. It's employment services. It's housing navigation. If you go to the shelter at the Link, their wraparound supportive services is connection to mental health services. They're not going to do mental health on site because that's not their basic is housing, right? They're not going to take out a stethoscope and do the medical services at this point.
That's what I'm trying to get at is what for Orange County, because I want to stay local, but for Orange County, what do supportive wraparound, or what was the wraparound supportive services? What is in that bubble currently?
Generally, I think it's
No,
really,
that's-
yeah, generally it's more so employment services, housing navigation, connection to housing, connection to mental health, connection to employment services. That's general. But some service providers could get really robust.
Okay. And how many housing navigators do we have?
When you say we, who are you talking about?
The city of Santa Ana.
Well, my understanding,
We don't employ any housing navigators. We
Okay.
don't have sufficient funding to
Yeah.
do so. We rely, again, as I described, on our homeless service provider partners to provide housing navigators and employ housing navigators.
and that's typical in other housing authorities too, where it's working with nonprofit agencies who have the housing navigators. I really haven't seen any housing authorities who have housing navigators.
Thank you.
I got a
Go ahead, Commissioner Commissioner Frazier, were you done?
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Commissioner Perez, and then I'll come back to you, Commissioner Aguinaga. Thank you.
So I'm a little new to the process and learning and growing. What I struggle as a commissioner is I sit here and I hear the housing, the issue with guarding homelessness, and the issue of having 18 vouchers and not enough support. And when we look at our CDBG funds and who we're giving money to and why we're giving money to, and this, I guess, plays back to my question from day one of having someone on that process, because strategically we have a major issue, and I think to support this issue of homelessness, to support, more, even if it is staff. I mean, I would want staff to come to the table and say, hey, Jim, we need this additional money. Or, you know what, we need nonprofits that can provide these type of services to support in our homeless. And I think those are some of the things that I would want more of. And again, being new, don't know if it's happened before or that process. But I struggle listening and hearing that we have these vouchers and we can't place them, and staff is working hard and everything you're doing, I love it. But here on the dais, how can we support you? And I think, I'm going to go back to something you said right now. Well, actually, I think what you're talking about is unbelievable, and I love it. And you're very articulate, and you know what you're doing. And like you said, as you did the presentation, cities are coming to you saying, "Wow, you created something." But I would even argue where you say it's normal that most don't have home navigators. Well, then so what? Why can't we? Why can't we be innovative? Why can't we be the system of change? So I'm a visionary. I want to think big. I want to solve the problem. And I think a lot of times we hear about the problem, but no, let's talk about solutions. I mean, you have some unbelievable commissioners that want to support you, want to think outside that box. And I struggle a little bit with, as we look at these CDBG funds, we look at a lot of opportunity, and here we're struggling. Well, do they get it for this, or do they get it for this? And where I ask the question is, well, what's our plan? What's our vision? And so just want to say thank you. We're here to support you. I would like to know more ways of how we can look at system changes and reallocation of opportunities to support that. Because when I hear that 18 families need our support, you're already doing everything you can. So then how can we do more? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm inspired. Thank you.
Does staff want to respond to that?
I will say this, just this homeless services position is a new one. I came on board last year, and the city, this is the first of its kind. So when you're talking about innovation, no other city has a homeless service manager. Our city council approved on this, and I am so blessed to be working with Judson and his team. When you're looking at homelessness, oftentimes you're looking at housing, right? Because what's the solution to homeless? Providing a home. And whether that home is a temporary home, an emergency home, or a permanent supportive housing. So in terms of support, definitely United Way and the Greater Orange County Joint Housing Authority, that's the movements that's happening right now, is the 2,700 units. So we want to be able to definitely support that. We need more supportive housing. We need more permanent supportive housing. From my professional expertise as a homeless service manager, I see that senior housing is going to be a big one down the road. And definitely we do believe that veterans we could eliminate and come down to functional zero to make sure that all veterans are housed.
Thank you. And I'd also like to quickly respond to Commissioner Perez. Thank you for all of your comments. And I see an opportunity in that the commission has requested that we form a CDBG committee to really oversee what the next CDBG process will look like for the upcoming year. I have talked to staff. I talked to David, and he informed me that he can start working on that in August, September because of their current workload. I know our CDBG staff stepped out for a second, but I think if you should join that committee.
Oh, I'd love to.
And that's where we can start thinking as a commission, what would we like that vision to look like for the next round of CDBG funding. And I know the city in the past has prioritized specific categories for which we're supposed to, with the rubric, award more points to organizations that fall within these categories, which in the past have been economic development, crime prevention, and tenant services. So we can change those categories based on the needs that we currently see. I know last year I recommended that we add tenant services and programs to that. Staff was able to add that to the report that then went to the city council. The city council approved that. So there is room for growth and change. So thank you for your comments, and I think that's something that we can start looking at with this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I want to say thank you. I've noticed that there's a greater interest by the commission. At first I gave 5-minute update, and now they're kind of becoming 10, 15. So in the interest of time, thank you so much.
You're at 45.
I know. And just for point of clarity, you will get the point of time summary, Senate Bill 450, and then we have not landed on Friday at 4 because Commissioner Santana was requesting specifically the transportation. So that's tentative. We'll get back to you.
And I agree. I would love to see the full process.
Okay.
Thank you. And we also had a question or comment from Commissioner Aguinaga.
I don't know if this is the right, I think it is.
Go ahead.
I've been going to my work, which is in Broadway and Madison, and I had the business and rate. And every day I find out in the morning homeless sleeping in there, in different ones. The broker in the office is kind of afraid. Sometimes because they sleep in the little hole. I took pictures of it if you want those pictures. But my question to you is, who's in charge? We've been calling the police, and they take longer to come, but I don't know what to do about that.
So you took a picture, so you could go onto My Santa Ana app, and if it's an individual that has an encampment with them, then you can go under there and go under abandoned property and, submit that, and then it actually shows you what area, you ping it, and then the COLT team will go out there. If it's just an individual that is homeless without an encampment, then what you can certainly do is go onto our Addressing Homelessness website, and you're welcome to put that input, and we could connect it to our HEART officer.
But this is not only, this is only two examples that I'm giving you, but since they close in here, really the homeless are all over the city in different areas. They're just looking for a place. I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
But they're just looking for a place to sleep.
Yeah.
But it's all over the city, not only in the two places that I mentioned.
Right, and this is why there is a huge litigation. The federal judge is involved. I'm sorry?
Who should I call if that happens besides the police?
So you can call the county healthcare worker. So I could give Bianca the information to pass on to you. There are healthcare agency workers that will go out and engage with the homeless. And then we also have our HEART, Homeless Evaluation Assessment Response Team, that you're welcome to. So you could send me an email and I can make sure that our HEART officer goes out there. The reason I also incorporate the county is because oftentimes the folks are from the city of Santa Ana, oftentimes they're not. And our HEART officer works very closely with COLT, and they're just backlogged. There's just not enough. So it's a teamwork.
Yeah, but actually they live in. Once I get there,
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Santana has a comment or question as well.
Ceci just brings good ideas into my head sometimes. And I had a quick question. Right. Does Public Works put any money to help with fencing for some business? I've noticed on Main Street and Warner and some of the larger corridors that there's fencing that goes up?
Yeah, definitely. On my way to Tierra Mia Coffee, because I love that place, I know that there was this one business that often had a lot of homeless. I can't remember the cross streets, and so we have an interdepartmental team where all of the departments come together and we talk about resources and we talk how we're going to strategize. So sometimes there are fences around that.
Is it a cost burden to the business owner or is this going to?
There's a whole process. So there's a code enforcement process, there's a public works process, and I'd be happy to discuss more, in generally or provide that information since we're hitting time. But there's a whole process. Like code enforcement will go out and they'll talk to the business. Public works, they put fences in different parks areas. So there's a whole process.
And if I can say, I know that the app is ideal to report because it's probably faster, but I've seen some audacious people go out and try to go Facebook Live and try to record, and I've seen where it kind of might have turned the wrong way because they either get insulted or they're agitated, and so I think we should have we do have a dedicated phone line. I know you've given out your number, you've been accessible, but I think we should be reaching out to the businesses as well as residents to say, hey, there's other options aside from the app, because if you come to my camp and you're taking pictures of me, then I'm going to have an issue, because if that's the place where I am safe and I'm comfortable and you're here trying to evict me, I'd be really upset. So if you can give residents and as well as businesses more options to safely report, then I think that'd be great.
Thank you. I'll make a note. I made a note of that and discuss it with our interdepartmental team.
Thanks, also.
Yeah. Anything else?
Are there any additional questions, comments? No? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. No problem. Have a great evening.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and move back to the consent calendar. So this is time for the commission to consider matters under consent calendar. Items include items 1 through 3. Do any members have any corrections to the minutes, items they wish to pull for separate discussion or abstain on? As chairwoman, am I allowed to pull items as well?
Yes, you could pull items from the consent calendar, of course.
I would like to pull item number 2.
The excused absences?
Yes, to note that Commissioner Tardif arrived at 4:40 and is not absent. So to note that Commissioner Tardif arrived at 4:40, so he's not absent. Okay, then I withdraw that. Do I have a motion to consider items 1 through 3?
I make a motion to consider items 1 to 3.
Thank you, Commissioner Aguinaga. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Perez. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. The matter is approved by a vote of, are the tenant commissioners allowed to vote on these items? Yes, okay. The matter is approved by unanimous consent, 8-0. We're now going to be moving on to the business calendar. We will be starting with item number 5, the quarterly report for housing voucher program, January 2019 through March 2019. Will staff report on the matter? And very quickly, did we need a motion for item number 4, the verbal update from the homeless manager? No, okay. So will staff be reporting on item number 5?
No, but staff are available for any questions from the commission.
Are there any commission member questions? I had a few, I just need to pull them up. So if there are none from anyone else, if we can just give me a second. So my question is, on the HQS inspections. So there's information on that on page 4-3. So in that last paragraph at the bottom, it notes that there were 442 inspections and re-inspections of the assisted units, of which 135 inspections failed. Is staff able to report on some of the reasons why these inspections failed?
No, there would be too many.
Or just from your general knowledge, are you aware of why some of these inspections failed?
It could be a smoke detector. It could be a leak. It could be, maybe there's the toilet isn't flushing. I mean, it could be anything that's related to a housing quality standard inspection. So, personally, I am not keeping track of the fail. It is not something that I look at when I'm running the reports. It is done by a different department. And I'm just brainstorming some of the housing quality standard fail items.
In your professional opinion, are the majority of them minor issues?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So my next question is, what happens with these failed inspections? Of these 135, do we know how many of them were re-inspected and then passed? Are those considered in the 442 number?
They may be. It depends. For example, if we go out in March, say the second week in March, and some of these 135 inspections failed in that month, those are not going to be reported until the next quarter, because the re-inspection is done 2 weeks later. And some of those owners or the tenants might get extensions. They can have up to 30 days of an extension. And then if they don't pass inspection on the 30th day, then we start process with the abatement. So yes, the answer to your question is the 442 were inspected in that quarter, 135 failed. But yes, we do go back, and it is mandatory that they pass inspection. So we don't just say 135 fail and forget about them. We do go back. We follow up.
Okay, and then so I asked because I'm wondering what happens to the families that live in these 135 units. So can you explain the process when this inspection is fails again, and now you have to go through this abatement process? What happens to the family that lived in that unit? What does that process look like for them?
Well, if they're not life-threatening fails, so that's one. If it was, we would go out the very next day. And if it was, something that needed immediate attention, we contact the owner and we make sure that, we follow up the very next day. All of these are not life-threatening failed inspections. So what happens is when we come back after we perform the inspection, we send a letter to the owner and the tenant, and we let them know that the unit failed. Mm-hmm. And attached to this letter, we'll have a reinspection date, which is normally about 2 weeks after today. And then it will have a list of all the failed items. And so 2 weeks come up, we go out. The majority of them do pass, but at one point, if we go back and we notice that all the repairs haven't been completed, we send out a letter to the owner and a copy to the tenant letting him know, or her know, the owner, that there's still some pending fail items, and we will start abatement if they're not repaired within 30 days. So it is rare that we start abatement. All of our owners usually respond quickly. They want to get their payment.
So assuming that I am a landlord and I've just decided I no longer want a Section 8 tenant, so I'm not going to comply, and then this is going to go through the abatement process, what happens to that family that used to live there? So I'm wondering what that rehousing process looks like. Is there also a 60-day time frame in which they have to find new housing? What type of support do they receive? Where do they get housed in that intermittent time?
If the unit continues to fail within that first month of abatement, and if the owner has no intent on making the repairs, we do notify the tenant that they need to move, and we will issue a voucher. So we will send out a letter saying you need to move to continue receiving rental assistance. And that's tough for the family. I haven't seen one of those in a while, but they have happened.
Yeah. Let me, if I may expand on that, it's so rare, because let me walk you through the mechanics of that and the economics of it. So if you're a landlord and you're renting to one of our Section 8 voucher holders, we go out to inspect the unit today and there's deficiencies in that unit. Okay, so we fail the inspection. Well, we'll go out within 2 weeks, and we'll go out on May 10th and we re-inspect it, and it fails again, the inspection. So beginning on, 30 days from today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So beginning on May 24th, we begin holding your HAP payments. So say our tenant's only paying you $50 as the minimum rent, and we're paying you $1,600. Okay, we're going to begin holding our $1,600 until you correct those deficiencies, until you let us know that they're corrected, beginning May 24th. And we'll notify you of all this in writing. So you decide and you think that it's strategic to just fail your unit and not because you don't want to rent to Section 8 anymore. Well, beginning May 24th, we began holding your rent of $1,600, and you notify us that on June 5th, you notify us that you're not going to correct those deficiencies and at all. Okay, so then we'll start the move process for our tenant. So we'll schedule the tenant around June 15th. Meanwhile, we're holding all your rent, and you can't evict our tenant while we're doing that. We'll schedule them for a move meeting around June 15th. We'll then notify you that our contract is going to terminate. What would we do, July 31st or August 30th? Probably
if
August.
It's the 15th, probably July 31st.
Okay, so then we'll notify you that we're going to terminate our housing assistance payments contract with you on July 31st. So your decision to not correct those deficiencies mean you've lost rent on your unit. You can't evict our tenant since May 24th, so you've lost $1,650 or $1,600 for June and July. So you're now at $3,200 and a prorated portion of May 24th to May 30th. So you're at about $3,500. And meanwhile, on June 15th, we've issued our tenant a voucher to move, and so they begin the relocation process with adequate time to relocate out of your assisted unit. So it's very rare for a landlord to not comply with our abatement procedures, and very rare for us to have to issue a tenant a voucher to relocate because that landlord refuses to correct the deficiencies. What's more common is that you as a landlord try and contest your deficiencies with our management staff, with me, our executive director, and that's much more common than the very, very rare case of us issuing a tenant a voucher to relocate from your assisted unit.
And if I can also add, if there's a association involved, it's a condo, and the repairs need approval from an association, the owner will usually reach out to us, and we will get an extension above the 30 days if it's the exterior part of the unit. So we work with the owner, and again, they're not life-threatening failed items.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that it is very rare that this process has to be undergone.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so rare, is staff able to provide information on that whenever it may happen? So just reporting a number, like in this quarter, there was one voucher that went through this process, if that ever happens?
It's not in my reports. We would have to track it in a different way.
Okay.
We would have to evaluate our capacity to track that down.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other commission member questions or comments?
Just a quick question.
Yes,
What happens when, let's say the owner is deceased and the property goes to like an estate, or have you experienced that, or, you know?
Yes, but we usually go through the change of ownership. So sometimes the family will leave it in a trust, and all we need to do is, if the trust has a different tax ID number, where the family just wants it reported with that either tax ID or social security number, we usually just do a change of ownership effective when they're asking us to do it, and then the payments are issued as soon as the change is completed. It's not very complicated.
Thank you. And then I have another question on the expired vouchers. So that's described in page 44 towards the bottom. So there were 15 expired vouchers processed during the reporting period. So that means that a family was unable to locate a unit, so they lost their voucher. Is there any, and I know we just talked about the mainstream vouchers and the assistance that is made available to the individuals that receive those vouchers. Is there any assistance or any places where these residents are referred to receive assistance to locate a unit?
No.
So does the city have a referral service with any nonprofits or any other community partners that are able to assist in locating a unit?
Assisting the families?
Assisting the families to find a unit with their section?
No, we don't. We don't, like Judson explained earlier, it is not within our capacity to provide that kind of service. If they ask for a specific need, we do refer them to the 211 and see if they can link them to any services that are available in the county.
So there's currently no partnerships with any local nonprofits that can assist with that process? Okay.
We've about 3 years ago we met with Families Forward, who provides housing navigation services, but they do it on a countywide basis. Who would be one potential provider, but it'd be a matter of trying to identify the source of funds, and our admin funds for our housing authority wouldn't be eligible, so we'd have to figure out what source of funds to use.
Got a question? Can I jump in?
Go ahead, Commissioner Bitters.
I know the school districts now, I'm working at the County Office of Education. Schools now have wellness centers, specifically in Santa Ana, but across the board, where I think if we knew of sought problems to help find a solution, because they have community liaisons, they have foster liaisons, they have wellness, they have parent educators, and part of that is actually to support, and quite a few of them actually have mental health clinical staff on site as well. And I think it's just these connectors. How can we continue to find a connection and to provide that support? So the question, I guess, would be is, do a lot of these families have children, and then are we looking at connecting them within the school district? Because I think the school district, they have homeless funds and monies that is tied to reaching these populations. And the more they're able to show success, specifically under their new funding, which is through LCAP, Local Control Accountability Program, they have to show for their homeless population what services they have. And all of them have to have homeless liaisons and a homeless program specialist. So I think those are avenues that we can look at supporting in that partnership to help out. So if we were able to identify if there's a child and what school that child went, I could support and assist in that direction.
Yeah, I'd also be really interested in helping city staff create a referral list so that families can receive some sort of assistance, and we have less families losing their voucher simply because they couldn't find a unit. So in my entire time on the commission, there's always a number there, which I think is very unfortunate because those families have extreme needs. And it's just, it's really unfortunate that they lose the voucher after waiting 5, 6, 7 years simply because they weren't able to find a unit in that time frame.
Yeah, if you give me the information from the school district or different programs that we can refer, maybe vouchers.
Yeah, I would love to set up a meeting with you and the executive director of San Unified People Personnel Services. Yeah. They're going to be hiring a brand new program specialist for homeless liaison. The individual is currently going to be retiring, so they're looking for new. And they had reached out to me saying, do you know anyone?
We can definitely put it on a list and then hand it out at the briefings, at Perfect. The voucher briefings. We don't have any scheduled in the near future specifically just off the waiting list for the housing choice voucher. We are working with the mainstream vouchers, and hopefully soon we'll work with VASH. But if those services are available, we can definitely include that in the briefing packet.
Excellent.
And provide that information. We already have a referral list, but it's like the Edison phone number, just the gas company, just different places where they might get some kind of an assistance or utilities connected, but we can definitely add to the sheet.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional commission member questions or comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Vasquez.
Okay. A neighbor of mine who's in Section 8 asked me the other day if he was to lose his Section 8, if there was an appeal process.
Yes, there is. We
Okay.
don't just terminate your rental assistance. If there is going to be a termination in your case, you get a lot of notices way in advance, and you don't just get the termination. For example, did he say why he would be losing his rental assistance?
Well, because he freelances, so he thought that, and then every once in a while he gets a gift from people that he's computer, maybe you could say like webmaster.
So, for additional income?
Yes, sometimes, but he says it's basically, about him, I think basically it's getting exploited, but that he gets a gift for his services.
So, if I may answer your question, so she or he would any participant in our program goes through a very extensive process if they are the housing authority is proposing a termination of their rental assistance benefits. So it starts with a recommendation to propose a termination of assistance by our staff based on the evidence that they obtain. That evidence is then gathered and brought forward to our committee made up of myself, our legal counsel, as well as two of our housing authority management staff who review the evidence, review the recommendation, review the regulations, review the program violations, and make a determination on whether or not the housing authority should move forward with the proposed termination of housing assistance benefits. And then the staff, if the proposed termination is approved by the housing authority, then the staff then prepares a notice which details all of the evidence from the housing authority as well as the exact program regulations and policies that were violated by the family. And the letter provides, and this is in regard specific to your question, so the letter provides a date for the family to request an appeal, and it's their right. They have a right to appeal the termination of their rental assistance benefits under the law. And they're provided with 14 calendar days from the date of the letter, the date of the proposed termination notice. I review every single one before they're sent out, and I sign them myself. And then during that 14-day period, if they submit a request for an appeal, then staff will then schedule an appeal hearing for that family in front of a third party. I forget what we call our hearing
officer.
They're called hearing officers, but they're professional mediators. It's like they're paid like $350 per hearing to hear each case on behalf of the family and on behalf of the housing authority, and they provide an impartial judgment. They hear the case presented by the housing authority and the evidence provided by the housing authority and the proposed termination of rental assistance benefits, which the family all receives prior to their hearing, and then they hear the case and the evidence provided by the family, and they make an impartial decision in judgment whether or not to uphold the termination of the rental assistance benefits or overturn the decision of the housing authority. And then once the housing authority, if it's approved by the hearing officer, once the housing authority receives that decision, then we notify the family in writing with adequate notice of the termination of their rental assistance benefits. They can always appeal that in a local court of law as well, and we notify them in that in their letter as well. So they have sufficient notice from the beginning, and it goes through a very thorough due diligence process to both protect the integrity and rights and responsibilities of the family, while also protecting the interests of the housing authority and our liability to legal action.
Thank you. I'll
Thank
relay
you.
it to
Are there any additional comments or questions from commission members? Thank you. Seeing as there are none, I'm going to move on to public comments. Is there any member of the public that would, on this item, is there any member of the public that would like to speak on the matter? If so, you may fill out a request to speak form with the recording secretary. You have 3 minutes to speak. Also, we will not accept any additional requests to speak cards once we begin the public comment session. If you haven't already done so, please give your form to the recording secretary. Seeing as there are no public comments, do we have a motion to approve item number 5, quarterly report for Housing Choice Voucher Program, January 2019 through March 2019?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Tardif. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? The matter is approved by unanimous consent with a vote of 8-0. We're now going to move on to the third item on the business calendar, item number 6, quarterly report for Housing Division projects and activities, January 2019 through March 2019. Will staff report on the matter?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Staff do have a report on this item.
Thank you.
Hi, I want to give you a quick report on the Housing Division's activities. I want to talk a little bit about the home rehabilitation program, down payment assistance, and compliance monitoring. Give you a quick update there, and then probably spend the bulk of our time on the multifamily development projects because we have a lot going on in that area. Our home rehabilitation program is still on hold while we're working on hiring the vacant residential construction loan specialist position. The applications were due yesterday, and so we are diligently working on reviewing those applications and scheduling the next steps in the process to get the program back up and running as quick as we can. For our down payment assistance program, staff did conduct 2 presentations with 96 prospective home buyers, and a total of 107 applications were distributed. 1 application was approved, and we actually closed escrow, which was exciting. Judson will be giving you a little update on that story of success as well in his staff comments. Staff has also completed compliance monitoring for one of our multifamily development projects. We audited 27 loans, and we've also conducted 140 building code compliance inspections in 9 projects. So, going to our multifamily development projects now, we have a total of 9 projects in various stages of development. There are 3 that are under active construction. The first one is First Street Apartments. Construction is 50% complete and is anticipated to be complete by the end of September. The pre-leasing process will probably be started in May. Typically, they want to start that process 90 to 120 days prior to expected occupancy, and that's because the documentation for the borrowers has to be current within 90 to 120 days of their occupancy. So if the construction deadline for completion is moved out, just realize that the time frame for starting the lease-up process is also going to be pushed out. Santa Ana Arts Collective is still underway. Construction is now 35% complete. They've had a few delays due to the methods for bracing the foundation that have caused additional time there. So again, their educational sessions have been pushed out. They're going to be held now in June. They have started an interested parties list, and they have 339 people on that list, though. Staff has met with both of these projects. to discuss how they're going to implement our local Santa Ana preference, and we will be auditing the implementation of that as the lease-up process moves forward. Once these projects are completed, we will have created an additional 125 units of affordable housing in Santa Ana. The third project that's under construction is the Santa Ana Veterans Village. Groundbreaking was held in January, and grading is 90% complete. Construction is anticipated to be completed in March of 2020, and this project will add 75 units of permanent supportive housing for our veterans in Santa Ana. Of the 6 projects that are in pre-development, 2 of them are preparing to close on their financing and start construction soon. Both of them are projects from the developer community development partners. The first is Aqua Housing. They were anticipated to close on their financing in April, and that's what we reported in the last quarterly housing report. They are, however, still working on approval of their grading plan, and they have received an extension to close on their financing from their senior lender. The city does not have actual dollars committed that we need to close on. We are committing 56 project-based housing vouchers to this project, though. The Tiny Tim project is scheduled to close on their financing beginning of May. Their deadline is May 6th. And they are receiving $6 million in city funds. There's $1.3 million in inclusionary housing funds and $4.7 million in housing successor agency funds committed to this project. This is the last affordable housing project that was awarded a pre-commitment of funds in 2017 that did not go through the RFP process because it was prior to the implementation of the affordable housing funds policies and procedures that were approved in March 2018. And this project will create 51 units of housing for very low and extremely low-income families. We have a remainder of 4 new development projects that were recommended by this commission in December 2018, and during the first quarter were approved by council. These are the Budget Inn, which will create 89 permanent supportive housing units, Francis Xavier, which will create 12 permanent supportive housing units, the Santa Ana United Methodist Church's Legacy Square. This will create 92 units, all below 60% AMI, and 33 of them will be PSH units. And then we also have Habitat for Humanity's 2 homeownership homes that'll be at 120% AMI. All 4 of the projects are working on their project design and obtaining their financing, and that's going to take about a year. They're going to anticipate to start construction in the first or second quarter of 2020. Once all of these 9 projects are done, they should all be constructed by the end of 2021. They will have created over 500 units of affordable housing, so that's something we can all be proud of, I think. Finally, you probably noticed on your agenda there was an item for a pre-loan commitment and ground lease for 1126 East Washington Street that we did pull from the agenda. This is the last proposal from the current RFP that staff is working on bringing to you for recommendation. And there are some additional issues that we're currently working through with the county on the term of the lease, as well as with the developer on their pro forma to make sure that the financial analysis is going to be correct. So we're working on tying all those things down with you, and we'll bring that back to you at the next commission meeting in May. Next thing I want to let you know is we are starting work on the RFP for the next year. We're going to plan on bringing that to you in May and to council for approval in June and releasing it in July. If you look at Exhibit 1, we are currently anticipating that there will be $7.74 million in available funds. This amount includes $380,000 in program income from the repayment of residential rehabilitation loans from a prior HUD program that has since been closed out. That's something new that you're going to see on Exhibit 1 at the very bottom. What's currently not included, but will be at the next quarterly report, is the allocation of home and CDBG funds. We did receive our home allocation, and that is going to be $1.7 million. Also not included at this point in time is the allocation of SB2 funds. And these were approved in 2017 as part of Governor Brown's housing package. And it's the real estate recording fee that you see when you close on financing in California. We're anticipating that the State Department of Housing and Community Development will be dispersing these funds in August or September. And so we are going to include some verbiage in the RFP to this effect, letting them know that the available funds may change, and to look for a notice from us that we will be informing developers once that's made available. And finally, in preparation for the next RFP, we heard your concerns about wanting to get additional training on the affordable housing development financing process. And so we are planning a presentation for you at the June meeting from Kaiser Marston and Associates. They are our consultant that does the financial gap analysis for all of the projects. And so it's going to be hopefully a nuts and bolts presentation that'll go into some detail. And some of the questions we're going to try to have them answer for you are what is the subsidy layering analysis? What are the mechanics of it? What's the relationship between the depth of affordability and the need for public subsidy? What are the key sources of financing for affordable housing projects, and how do the available funding sources drive affordability? How do the differing funding source requirements influence a project's design? And finally, what are some key questions that decision makers such as yourselves should be asking when evaluating affordable housing projects? So if there's something else that you want to be hearing, let us know. I'd be happy to take some additional feedback from you at this time.
Thank you. Are there any commission member questions or comments? I'll start on this side. Commissioner Perez. Oh, sorry. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Okay. I have a few, as always. So let me begin. Well, first of all, thank you, staff, for producing this report. I don't know if it was any different from the past ones, but I enjoyed this one more.
Good.
So, thank you for that. Specifically, I wanted to thank you for the comparison that you make at the top of page 5.5, where you compare how many units would have been built on site to the number of units that are being built elsewhere with the inclusionary housing funds. So thank you. I think I've asked questions based off that to staff in the past, so it's really helpful to see that in this report.
Great.
Also, I had specific questions about some of the projects that are under construction. Specifically for the Santa Ana Arts Collective, and I believe I've asked similar questions in the past. So this report notes that there are currently 339 people on the list of interested parties. Do we know do we know what their outreach has looked like to get those people on that list, and how other interested parties may be able to join that interest list?
Yeah, so they have been doing outreach to a number of different arts groups, and that information was provided in the last request for information. I can go back and pull it and we can re-forward it to you, because I don't remember all the names of the groups off the top of my head, but they have been speaking individually to a bunch of the groups, and so they're getting information that way as far as requests to be on the interested parties list, and then just when people drive by, if they see and call the office as well.
Okay, and I asked because there were a few organizations or groups that I asked that they reach out to, so I just wanted to see where they were in that process.
Okay.
So any additional information would be greatly appreciated.
And if you have a list of the groups that you want me to specifically check on, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, so one of them is el Centro Cultural de México.
I'm sorry, which one?
El Centro Cultural de México. Yeah, so that's a community space that's walking distance, and they have a lot of community artists from that neighborhood. So, and if I remember the rest, I'll contact you with those as well. And it also lists that there are 4 educational sessions scheduled for June. Are there specific dates on those?
There are not. Again, they are waiting till they get a little bit closer to schedule those. They were originally planning on doing those in April, thinking they were going to be completing in construction in August. So they really need to get a little bit closer to the construction end date, where they're pretty certain that they're going to hit that date before they start doing the educational sessions and taking applications and doing lease-up activities.
Thank you. And I would request that everybody on this commission be made aware of those dates so that we can attend if we're interested. And then going back a page to the information on First Street Apartments. So I noticed there was no number. There was no number on how many people are on their interest list. Do they currently have an interest list?
They do not have an existing interest list at this time.
Okay. Is there additional information that can be requested from them to be shared with this commission on what that? So I know it talks about a pre-leasing process, so I'm wondering if that is going to include that interest list, just because I know that interest lists are typically made available way ahead of those 120 days. So I'm just a little concerned about what their process is going to look like and what their outreach will be.
So we actually had a conference call with them on that exact topic, and the purpose of our conference call was to focus in on the application of our local Santa Ana preference for our local residents to apply for the project and receive a preference, not a requirement, but preference to get on their interest list. And they shared that again they're going to start the pre-leasing process in May, and we asked that when they start that process, when they draft their first flyer, that they notify us immediately so that we can send that out to the commission as well as via Nixle to the community and try and get the information out there as widely as possible to our residents to apply. And so right now that's. Again, mid-May is what we're expecting, and then they'll start receiving pre-applications
in June, probably.
Yeah.
I think that the two projects are a little different just because there's an actual target audience when you're talking about the Santa Ana Arts Collective as far as artists, and there's known community groups of artists and public spaces and stuff that cater to artists. So there's a definitive body that they can start targeting and speaking to. So I think that's kind of what the difference is, why they have a interested parties list started and First Street Apartments does not.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you mentioned the Nixle and using that as a tool to inform the community. So I'd also be interested in seeing that same tool being used for the Santa Ana Arts Collective, because my other concern is that independent artists that currently do not belong to artist spaces would be excluded from this process when they also might be in need of affordable housing.
We could. So we're relying a lot on the expertise of the property manager and the developer of the Arts Collective on how they market those projects and how they work with our local art serving organizations. So we'll definitely we'll mention it to them. But we want to build on their expertise on how they market the market the units to get qualified artists to apply.
Can staff help coordinate a meeting between myself and any other interested commissioners and whoever is working on the outreach process? I just have a few questions and I would like to learn more about how they're navigating that.
For the
with the Santa Ana Arts Collective.
Yeah, sure. We can convene a conference call.
Thank you. And if any other commissioner is interested, I know Commissioner Vasquez has had a few questions in the past on this project as well. And
yes, initially it was about the qualifications. Since then, I received an email from a project manager, or maybe he was a director, I forget his name right now, but he emailed me back a list of what the overall qualifications that were going to be required for somebody to be designated as an artist, such industry things as a portfolio, resume things. So I've gone through it, and if you want, I'll email it to you.
Thank you. That would be great. Maybe you can email it to a recording secretary who can then share it with
I was wondering how to
and I think
process for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Frazier.
And I think Commissioner Ramos, I think what we'll do, because we don't really need to be on the call. I mean, your support of their efforts would be fantastic. So
Yeah.
we'll send you their contact information.
Yeah, that's
to
enough.
contact
Yeah.
them directly.
Sounds
You don't
good.
need to be on the call.
Thank you. I think those are all my questions, but just once again, thank you for producing this. I also really enjoyed pages 510 through 515. So I remember asking for something like this in the past, I think 2 or 3 reports ago. So I'm glad to see that it's become a part of these reports, and it makes it very easy to follow the process of these projects. So thank you
Good.
for that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Go
one
ahead,
one additional
Commissioner
question. I think it's more for Judson. The in lieu fees, when are we looking at taking a look if that's something that we should be doing, increasing? When are we going to take a look specifically, in regards to that?
So it's a great question. So the housing opportunity ordinance itself is embedded in the municipal code under the jurisdiction of our planning commission, and so our planning commission has the authority to review that housing opportunity ordinance and then recommend any changes to our city council. Back in December, we provided an update to City Council on the effectiveness of the housing opportunity ordinance, and including discussion on the in lieu fee, the amount of units produced. And City Council, we directed staff to come back to gather further information and come back with recommendations on whether or not to amend that ordinance. And so we've actually been meeting on a regular basis regarding that process, and we are right midway through right now. We're going to be reaching out in the next couple of weeks to convene stakeholder meetings, and again, a topic of discussion will be whether or not the in lieu fee should be increased or removed completely or decreased. It's just an open discussion on the in lieu fee, amount of units on site. So we're going to be holding stakeholder meetings. We're also going to be working with our real estate advisor to conduct an analysis of our housing opportunity ordinance and the in lieu fee amount. Whether or not we should introduce and create a commercial linkage fee, as well as the data and evidence behind the creation of that commercial linkage fee, and then whether or not we should modify at all the percentage of units on site and how that pertains to the in lieu fee charge. So,
do we do a longitudinal study, though? I mean, I think taking a look, what is that going to look 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Because I think as we come up with this number, as we come up with this figure, but what is the true effect, for a developer to build something and in lieu fee pay this amount? What's the cost analysis and a longitudinal study 20, 40, 50 years from now? And I think that would be something I would want to take a look at and make sure I'm informing my council member and even those in my planning commission, like, hey, wait a minute, it's not just what does this look like today? What does this look like for right now? But when we look at housing and the effect of housing long term, I think that's something that, I would want to make sure I had some information to be able to provide.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'd be glad to provide you with that analysis that's completed by our real estate advisor.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It'll provide detailed information and stuff.
A question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tardif.
Judson, could you explain the commercial linkage fee, what that is and how that works?
Oh, gosh. It's a little bit outside my realm.
Yeah, so it's a nexus study that looks at population growth patterns and the level of commercial development that's projected in the city over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And the underlying assumption is that if you have a certain level of commercial development, new businesses coming in, for example, there's new employees there, those new employees are going to need housing. So then it's looking at well, what types of businesses are being created, and what's the income level of those employees, how many of them are there, what's the growth projections of the businesses, and what type of housing ultimately would they need. And so it's the thought that commercial development has an impact on housing, and so there needs to be some sort of impact or linkage fee that's collected on commercial development in the city.
I see, thank you.
Thank you. And I'd also like to request that this, assuming that it's okay, that this commission, our commission members are invited to participate in that HOO stakeholder meeting or stakeholder meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Aguinaga.
I have a question for you, Jackson. Who chooses the real estate agents or who gets the deals whenever you guys do the down payment for, like, I was looking at this to say first. So who, they have their own real estate agent?
Yes. So the home buyers, they contact the city, and normally when they've contacted us, I mean, sometimes they have already got a property identified, so there's already a realtor involved and a lender. Other times they're contacting us up front without, at the very front end, but the city has a policy of not directing them to specific lenders or realtors.
Another question. If they don't have any real estate agent and they just go, to get the, did you guys guide them or you use somebody or how that works?
No, we don't guide them to specific real estate offices or realtors.
So they go, they just qualify for the voucher, the 20,000, that's what I usually sell, right? They qualify for that, they get the money after they pass the process of the application, and then they look for their own real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Correct.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional commission member questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm now going to move on to public comments for this item. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on the matter? If so, you may fill out a request to speak form with the recording secretary. You have 3 minutes to speak. Also, we will not accept any additional request to speak cards once we begin the public comment session. If you haven't already done so, please give your form to the recording secretary. Do we have any forms? Thank you. Seeing as there are no public comments, is there a motion to approve item number 6?
I make a motion to approve item number 6.
Thank you, Commissioner Aguinaga. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The matter is approved by unanimous consent with a vote of 8-0. We're now going to move on to public comments. Does the public have any comment on non-agenda items? Does the public have any comments they wish to share with the commission? Please know that you have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing as there are none, we're going to move on to staff member comments. Does staff have any comments they wish to share with the commission?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple of comments here. First, I want to say Happy Administrative Services Professionals Day to Bianca. Very much. We are grateful and appreciative of all the work that you do on behalf of our commission and staff every single day. So the next item is we'd like to request to change the date of our next regular meeting to Thursday, May 23rd at 4:30 p.m. If that works for all the commissioners, the reason behind changing that date and time to the next day is that we intend to make a recommendation to commit over $4.1 million and our 1126 East Washington Avenue site to the Related Companies of California for a new affordable housing project. And the date of April 22nd, the service provider who will providing the wraparound supportive services won't be available for the presentation that date. And so we'd like to ask to make sure that commission is available on Thursday, May 23rd at 4:30 p.m. Would that work for everyone?
Not for me. I have a surgery early in the morning on the 23rd. So that's okay with that.
I'm gonna be out of town the entire
Yeah.
week for
The entire-
business, yeah, so.
Entire week?
I won't be able to-
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have surgery.
Okay. So that doesn't work.
On the 23rd.
Okay. What if what if we looked at Thursday?
Before something before. No?
Thursday, May.
We can proceed with a date that works for the majority of the commissioners. But did you have an additional date to propose?
Would Thursday, May 16th work for the commission
For me, yes.
at 4:30 p.m.?
Well, for the, going back to the initial date you proposed, the 23rd, does that work for the rest of the commission? I mean, don't change it because of us, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But if both of you are available a week before, then
Well,
I'm available either date.
yeah, but don't change it because of that.
Then why'd you tell us?
May,
Thank you.
May 23rd work?
I'm both. I'm available both.
Okay.
Let's go with the 16th then to ensure we have Commissioner
May
Garcia.
16th that you said?
Okay.
16th,
May
okay.
May 16th.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Are you okay
Okay.
with that, Lisa? Because I don't know when you...
Of course, yeah. May 16th. May 16th works. We'll notify the developer as well as their service provider.
I've been knocked out for 2 weeks, so no doubt the paper.
Okay. So our next special meeting will be on May 16th at Thursday, May 16th at 4:30 p.m. And then I wanted to just highlight a story of success from our partners at America on Track. The Commission recommended funding in the amount of $45,000 for their organization last year and $45,000 for them this year. And they had a beautiful story of success from Angel, and just a really a neat story about his success and receiving services from their Brighter Futures for Children of Prisoners program. I also want to highlight our story of success for our down payment assistance program, Miss Marissa Maris. She's a local teacher at the Orange County School of the Arts and was able to purchase a home through our down payment assistance program. And excited to share her story in purchasing a new home.
I love that story.
And then our story of success for our housing authority for April, Mr. John Weber, having gone through the program at Emmanuel House and is now in 2012 graduated with his business degree and is currently enrolled in the California Consortium of Addiction Programs and Professionals. Another story of success from our housing authority working through our self-sufficiency program. We are expecting to have be holding a graduation ceremony for our housing authority self-sufficiency program at the beginning of June. So as soon as we have that date finalized, we'll be sending that out to the commission to attend. I wanted to also. We mentioned the the status of the recruitment for our residential construction specialist position. So just 2 more updates. The homelessness prevention program that we've discussed with Chairwoman Ramos. We were working to bring that item to the commission at today's meeting, and we weren't able to finalize that. So we are seeking to bring the framework for that program to the commission meeting in May, and then to City Council thereafter with an effective date of July 1st, to start an effective date of July 1st. And then in terms of our student commissioner, I don't see Commissioner Limon here today. I think it was obviously an excused absence, right? But we are working with Santa Ana ISD to identify a new student commissioner for the forthcoming school year, and congratulate and appreciate Commissioner Limon on her graduation. With that, Madam Chair, we do not have any further updates.
Thank you. I'll begin with commission member comments with Commissioner Vasquez.
I don't have any further comments or questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Tardif?
No particular comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Perez.
Yes, thank you, everyone, specifically staff, on those wonderful reports. I know last time when we were reviewing our CDBG funds, the last quarter of units of service that were completed were reported to us in December. I would like the updated, because December, January, February, March numbers should be available for us to review. Again, I was just concerned that quite a few agencies that we funded were not meeting their numbers. And after having some conversation with my council member, he also wanted an update information on those numbers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Aguinaga.
Well, I want to apologize. I was looking at my schedule, and I have my Orange County Vector Control Commission, the trustee on Thursday.
May
So you're
16th.
talking- Yeah,
Okay.
It's the third Thursday.
Okay.
So you're talking about the 16th, right?
Yeah, Thursday, May 16th. That doesn't work? That doesn't work? Okay.
Justin, it's not gonna work for me either, yeah, so count me out for the last half of May, I can't.
Okay,
So
no problem.
neither of you can make it on either the 16th or the 23rd.
I have the Vector Control. I cannot miss that one.
Okay, well,
Would we like to move it back to the 23rd when it seemed like you had confirmed attendance?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do the 23rd if that's
So we'll
okay.
move it back to the
Okay.
23rd.
All right, thank you, guys. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
It will be an important meeting. It's quite a big project and a big decision, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
My only comment is thank you to staff for all your hard work and for the reports and updates today. We appreciate them.
Commissioner Santana.
No comments. Just thank you, Ms. Bianca, for all the work that you do to keep us organized and here. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions and comments, but first I'll start with the May 23rd meeting. So I just have a question for staff, specifically on quorum. So we'll be missing 2 commissioners, which will leave our tenant commissioners able to vote on that item.
It's a housing item. Yes, it is a housing item, so they will be recognized voting members for that meeting.
Okay. So I think we'll be okay, but my concern was that both myself and Commissioner Ursua would have to recuse ourselves from that vote because it was a part of that original RFP where we had to recuse ourselves on all the other items as well. So I just wanted to ensure that there was going to be quorum for that vote.
That's right.
We can have further discussions on that. I'm not sure if you'll have to recuse yourself specifically to this project.
Oh, okay, that would
So
be even better.
we can discuss that further. Really, it's whether or not you have any direct connections with the developer that is being recommended for approval.
Okay. Because I
And
know
wouldn't quorum
last-
also just be the number of people representative, not necessarily voting? I mean, because they're going to, the quorum is the number of people actually in the room during the process. Regardless of how they vote is irrelevant. Isn't that correct?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not talking about their vote at all, but if they
Yeah.
recuse themselves, then they're no longer present for quorum purposes.
so
Oh,
that-
completely, okay.
Yeah. So and then I would agree with you and your interpretation of me not having to recuse myself, but I know in the past I was asked to recuse myself from all the RFP items, although I had no direct connection to any of the developers that were being awarded, simply because my employment had applied for the RFP, although they were not awarded. So I was asked to recuse myself from the entire process, as was Commissioner Ursua.
Right, and-
So that was my concern.
I appreciate that, but we'll
Discuss
take a
that.
look at these with each project that comes forward, and for this one, since it is one developer coming forward and you're not,
yeah.
you have no connection with that developer at all, I don't think those same issues arise, so you should be okay.
This also, if it helps too, it went through, the difference with this project is it went through another layer of review.
Okay.
So the review panel where your project was, well, the project you were affiliated with went through, this one went through a second review process in which 3 developers were recommended to the County of Orange for their consideration, and then for their recommendation, and so it went through a second review process. So
Thank you for that. I didn't understand the difference and how it would be different, but that makes sense. Thank you. I also wanted to say thank you for staff for listening to the commission and our desire for a work study session to better understand how affordable housing projects are funded. And I would also like to request, if it's not already planned, that same work study session be given to the city council, because we have new council members, so I know that was something that I had requested. I don't know if that's something that staff was already planning to do.
We could mention it to our director and our acting city manager, but that's as far as it would
Okay.
go. Yeah.
And I mentioned that because I spoke to one of our newly elected city council members that had very little understanding of what affordable housing was and how it's funded. So I think it would be in our best interest. Thank you. Also, I'm very happy to hear that the homelessness prevention program that I've been discussing with you separately will be coming back to this commission. So I'm very excited for all of you to hear about it. But it would help keep our most vulnerable families housed. So I don't know more than that as of now. And then last but not least, I'm also excited to hear that staff will be working on developing the new RFP that will be going out for the affordable housing monies that are available. So my question is if members of this commission are able to assist staff in that process.
So the RFP itself will actually come to the commission for your review and approval. So that would be, and you would see it beforehand. So what additional?
So my interest would be in members of this commission being able to recommend specific criteria that would be included in that RFP. So would there be an opportunity to provide that feedback and to amend the RFP as presented when it is brought to the commission?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that would be your opportunity to recommend I believe an amendment, right? A motion to amend the recommended action by staff for the RFP.
Yeah, essentially, at that time, you don't have to go directly with the staff recommendation. You can propose amendments to it as your motion.
So we would see the detailed RFP with everything that is included and the rubric for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
We'll also I appreciate advising us of that too, because we'll make sure that the affordable housing funds policies and procedures are readily available for the commission, so that if there's any proposed changes that would fall under those policies and procedures, that would fall under the jurisdiction of City Council and require an amendment to those policies and procedures.
Thank you. And on that note, can staff send out those affordable housing policies and procedures to everybody on this commission? Because there are a few commissioners that joined after that was approved, just so that we're all on the same page. And I actually think I might have recommendations for some amendments to that. And I don't know, there might be a few from other commissioners. So if that's the case, I'd also like for us to be able to review it and let staff know in a timely manner so that we can properly agendize that and make sure that those are implemented and approved and then implemented before the RFP or along that same time frame.
Madam Chair, can I ask one?
Go ahead, Commissioner Perez.
One thing as well, I don't know what the process is as far as the requirement of getting stuff to us before a vote, but I know last couple times, she's done a really good job of getting things to us earlier. The earlier the better, especially because it's a lot of information. So, and I want to respect that time and also try to reach out to staff before this meeting and maybe get questions or things answered. I think that's been, the last couple of times, I've been able to have the time to review it and reach out to staff and already have questions answered. But I think as a lot of these new projects and new things are coming our way, the faster I can review it, take a look at it, gives me an opportunity just to touch base with staff on questions would be good. And I don't know what the policy is as far as, when that needs to happen. But I know there's times where if it's in 48 hours, unfortunately, I'm going to ask a lot of questions here because I didn't have time to review it, touch base with staff, and so forth. So as soon as possible, whenever, you're able to, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner Perez. Commissioner Garcia.
I just wanted to add something or more of a question. Are we able to ask questions over email that we should be asking here? Is there a rule about that, or can, because of the Brown Act and things like that?
We'd be glad to glad to respond to questions before the commission
Okay.
members from any individual commissioner. So
Okay.
yeah, it facilitates the process, and if we're not able to respond to you prior, then we're able to prepare for the question at the commission meeting. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional commission member questions or comments? No? Great. Well, seeing as there are none, this meeting is adjourned at 6:29. The next special meeting is scheduled for May 23rd at 4:30 p.m. at the council chambers.